Pokemon base stats are weird.
Hi, I'm Atune3710, and I'm a big frickin' nerd, if you couldn't tell. Part of that, aside from, me liking to talk about Pokemon and play the Pokemon games, so that I'm also into a lot of things like rocks, math, code, stuff that would give most people headaches and or depression. But I had a question about how Pokemon's base stats work, particularly in Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go is currently celebrating its 10th year anniversary, having attracted and connected millions of people across the world to the magical world of Pokemon.
I'm not sponsored, it just seemed whimsical to say.
And so I asked myself a question that I'm sure anyone new to the Pokemon, or even a longtime player of the games, might ask: what is the strongest Pokemon in the game? Now, this is a question that, for most, this can be solved with a simple Google search. In Pokemon Go, a general metric for a Pokemon's strength is its combat power, or CP. Currently, the Pokemon with the highest CP in Pokemon Go is the crowned version of Saiyan. I want to say it's around 5,600 CP or so. If you include Mega Evolutions, then the highest CP Pokemon is the newly introduced Mega Mewtwo Y. That's particularly reminiscent of the main series, if you know anything about base stats as they currently stand. Both of them have very high base stats in the main series games. Saiyan has a little over 700 base stats, Mega Mewtwo Y has around 780. For most people, that's it. Right? Like, you found out your answer, you know what the strongest Pokemon is, you don't need to look further than that. But I, as a big freaking nerd, couldn't just let it go because I noticed something. You see, in the main series, Crowned Saiyan actually shares a base stat total with its counterpart, Crowned Zamazenta. But Zamazenta in Pokemon Go has a remarkably lower CP. It's a difference of almost 1,000. That's a similar story with Mega Mewtwo. Mega Mewtwo Y has a CP of 7,267, whereas Mega Mewtwo X has a CP of around 6,910. So what's going on? Well, what's going on is math. You see, Pokemon in the main series have 6 different stats. 6. That's because that's how hands work. I do this. I don't know why I'm doing that. That's weird. But in Pokemon Go, Pokemon only has 3 stats: HP, attack, and defense. That means when a Pokemon is brought into Pokemon Go from the main series, there's some conversion that's going on where the stats are being reworked from 6 down to 3. This means that there's some equations behind the scenes that are doing this conversion. Equations that leave some Pokemon primed for success in Pokemon Go and leave others dead in the water. Now, thankfully, these equations are public knowledge, meaning we can see what is happening to Pokemon that come into the game. They're not super complicated equations. For the most part, it's just taking averages and doing some simple multiplication and division, but there is something interesting to note in there. We can see that within the equations, defense and attack have different fractions, meaning that on a fundamental level, a Pokemon's base stats are not weighed equally during the conversion process. This got me wondering, and coincidentally takes us to the main point of this video, but if the way a Pokemon base stats are oriented can drastically vary the same Pokemon's base stats in Pokemon Go, what is the optimized orientation of a Pokemon's base stats in the main series so that it can have the highest possible CP in Pokemon Go? So how can we test this out? Sitting around and plugging in a bunch of numbers into a calculator with a bunch of pre-written equations sounds really boring, and I don't want to do that. Even I have my limits. Well, thankfully there's a way for us to do that without having to use a calculator, and it's by getting the computer to do it for us. That's right, I'm talking about code. I am talking about code. Cut to the code. Cut to the code quick now. So I've written a little code here, and basically all this is doing is that these are just the same equations that I showed before. I've just put them into Python. You'll notice some links here. I've got some numbers in the codes that will link you directly to where I got these equations. I've even put these in the description. But basically all this is doing is that it's just taking averages of the Pokemon's main stats, and it's doing certain things given specific conditions. So one of the things in the stats is that if the calculated stats are over 4,000 CP at level 40 for that Pokemon, there's a 9% nerf applied. It's right here. That's the if statement. And so basically I've just put it all here, and we can even test this out. I've plugged in the mainline stats for Tyranitar, so we can run it real quick, and we can see that it's calculated Tyranitar's CP to be 4,335, which if we take a look at the main series stats, we can see that it is exactly correct, 435 CP. And so what I've done is I've taken that list of math that you saw before and I plugged it into this one. Then I defined a second function that will basically just take in any sort of values. It'll take in either a range of values or single individual integer inputs, and it will rerun through through the given equation until it finds a specific set of values out of that big range of inputted values to get the maximum possible output out of the inputted function. If that didn't make a single lick of sense, don't worry, I kind of just barely understand the concept myself. This is basically using a process called brute force optimization. I've put a link in the description that talks about that process a lot better than I can right now, and I am so sorry if that did not make sense. So theoretically, we should be able to just plug in a big list of values and define a base stat total. I've defined 600 just as an arbitrary value. We were working with Tyranitar. I figure calculating the best pseudo-legendary for Pokemon Go is not a bad idea. So we should just be able to run the code, and that should be it, right? Yeah, it should be simple as that. Here we go. Just gonna run it, and needless to say, this did not work.
As it turns out, plugging in 6 giant ranges of values and expecting the computer to just work with that doesn't really work. The problem is that the ranges that we're working with are just gargantuan. We're dealing with 6 different ranges in the original iteration that we had over there, and that's a huge computational task because we're asking the computer to look through those different ranges, calculate some function with those different ranges, and then rerun itself over and over again, comparing original results to a previous result to see if this one is bigger than this one, which is a lot of work even for a computer. So just brute forcing this is not going to work. So what can we do to fix this issue? How do we make it so that our code can actually run what we're trying to give it? Well, what we can do is we can simplify what the code has to work with, which means we simplify what we give it. And the way we do that is that we have to be able to make some reasonable assumptions, which also involves us looking back at our original equations. Yeah, no, this is the math part, I'm sorry. So I have the equations written out here. I've already highlighted some stuff, mostly because I wasn't too satisfied recording previous takes. But what we can see is that with the CP equation, we can see that attack is the only stat here that does not have a square roots around it. Meaning attack is going to be higher than defense and HP can possibly be. So we should be able to just maximize the attack stat that we possibly can on the Pokemon in order to get the highest possible CP, right? We can just do that and be grand? No. No, it would not be grand. And that's because the base stats conversion is averaging out the 2 attack stats. It's averaging out special attack and it's averaging out special attack and attack. Remember, the whole point of this series of equations is we're trying to take 6 stats and fit them into a 3-pound and fit them into 3 stats. It's like putting 10 pounds of crap into a 5-pound sack. So I've already highlighted here, but the different equations are putting different multiplying factors against these base stats from the main series in order to do this. It's applying a 7/8 attack stat multiplier to the higher attack stat compared to the special attack stat. Meaning that if you have a Pokemon that has a really high attack stat, it's going to get 7/8 of that attack stat plus 1/8 of the lower attack stat. So an example of that would be if you have a Pokemon with 100 attack and 10 special attack, you're getting 7/8 of 100 here plus 1/8 of the 10 attack here. Same thing with defense, although it has different multiplying factors as you can see here.
is 5/8 plus 3/8. So it's not weighed as heavily as attack, but it is still important. What this does mean, though, is that we can min-max the attack stat. We just have to figure out whatever the defense stats are. And the way that we do that is that we have to figure out a realistic minimum and maximum value to place into our equation. Yeah, I know, we have to be realistic here. I know. Boo. Lame. I know. But in order for this to work, we have to set limits on this. Otherwise, if you just let this grow, this goes to infinity. This just keeps on going forever. The CP goes to infinity. And there's no Pokemon with infinite power, except for one glorious one, of course.
So what are some realistic ranges for Pokemon base stats? Where do they typically find? What's the minimum, what's the maximum? Well, the way I see it, it kind of depends on what sort of Pokemon you want to build. Most of the base stats are going to be fairly simple. The lowest HP mon is Shedinja with 1 HP. The highest HP mon is Blissey at 255. For defense, well, for speed, it's Munchlax at 5, and the highest speed is Regieleki at 200. Lowest defense Pokemon is going to be Blith Happiny at 5. Lowest special defense Pokemon is actually a tie between Alolan Sandshrew and Alolan Diglett. And then, of course, the highest defense mon that's not, like, Eternamax, Eternatus is Shuckle at 230 in both defense and special defense. So that just leaves us with the attack stat. Well, the lowest attack stat is 5, that's also Happiny, and the lowest special attack stat is actually it's tied with a bunch of different things. Alolan Sandshrew is just one of them. That just leaves the highest special attack and the highest attack stats, which, if you look at it with including Megas, then the highest attack stat goes to Mega Mewtwo X at 190. But Mega Mewtwo has a base stat of 780, and if we're trying to be realistic for lower IV, for Pokemon with lower base stat totals, that's not really a realistic value. So if we look at the next highest attack stat that isn't a Mega Pokemon, that's Kartana at 181 attack. Same thing with special attack, the highest special attack stat is 180.
Sorry, I know I look different. I took a shower during that really crappy time lapse, but now that we have a reasonable set of values, we can plug them into our code right along through here. So now, hopefully, we can run this code and it'll be a lot easier for the computer to work with. And yeah, we can hopefully see what the best pseudo-legendary Pokemon we can calculate, optimizing main series stats for the Pokemon Go's maximum CP. So let's go ahead and just run the code. And we get, moment of truth, the best combination is right here. I'm not going to list that out, but you can see the highest CP is 5,630, and that is for a Pokemon with the same base stat range as Tyranitar, Dragonite, Metagross, like, and all of those Pokemon in Pokemon Go, they do not equal this. This CP is that's phenomenal. That is Zacian level of CP in Pokemon Go. That I don't even think that's normal Zacian. I think that's best buddied Zacian, like Crown Zacian reaches that, which is honestly super impressive. And all we did was we just optimized the main series to optimize Pokemon Go. I realize I'm blabbering like an idiot, but it's just blowing my mind how like crazy of a difference it's making. As you can tell, the main series stats, I think this could actually work in the main series. One thing that I'm noticing is that this is actually really similar to Fluttermane stat alignment. So I'm honestly looking forward to the moment Fluttermane gets brought into Pokemon Go. It's a little on the slower side for like competitive ideas in the main series games. I honestly don't know how super competitive this would be in main series Pokemon like champions, for example. Honestly, I'd be kind of interested to see if you have any ideas on what Pokemon could be that. Please, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear ideas. Real quick, I want to try. So all we have to do is just adjust the base stat total and adjust the stats that we're working with. So I'm going to try this at a normal legendary range. I believe it's 680. So what is the most optimal legendary Pokemon in Pokemon Go? We get 6,940. Wow! That is actually on par with Mega Mewtwo X. That is on par with a current Mega Evolution of a legendary Pokemon in Pokemon Go. And this is just with like a base legendary stats. This is like Kyogre, Groudon, Dialga, Palkia, just run-of-the-mill stuff like that. Hang on, what? Let me try this with like Zacian. I'm actually gonna let's run it like this first, just to see. And you get 7,000. So if you fully optimize, if you min-max the living daylights out of a crown form Zacian, you can get a Pokemon with 7,652 CP. Good grief, Charlie Brown. And then let's just put in Mega Mewtwo's attack stat, special attack stat. This is assuming that we're working with Mega Evolutions now. This is the highest special attack that a Mega Evolution can have. All the rest of these stay the same. But let's just run this and see what a Mega can get. Okay, so okay. Well, actually, no. Hang on. Yeah, I see where it's taking it, and it's putting a lot more into the attack stat. That's for sure. Well, of course it is. Doy. But even just adding a little bit of attack stat to the base stats, you get over 300 CP added to the Pokemon in Pokemon Go. What is this for Mega Mewtwo? This is assuming Mega Mewtwo's stat product. 9,165 CP! Oh, look at the main series stats! You can't take a sucker punch to save the life of you, but everything else, you are not dying. This is amazing. Keep in mind, there's a 9% nerf that gets applied to a Pokemon stats if the calculated value at a certain level is over a certain value. So this is post-nerf stats is what we're seeing here. This is insane. That a nerfed Pokemon gets 9,165 CP. We can take it even further. Eternamax Eternatus. 1125 base stat total. Okay, HP stays the same. Defense gets jacked up to 250. What is this gonna do? Okay. Well, okay. I think I know what happened here. Okay. So, the base stat total is so high compared to the range of reasonable stats we've put in here that it simply can't return any value. It's hitting this right here. So, yeah, I think we need to... Well, hang on. Can we do this? Quick math. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, so that's 160? No, that's 80 something. Well, it's... Hang on. Let's just try this. I didn't think it was going to work first try. Oh. Oh. What have I done? What have I done? What have I done? Oh no. What have I done? No! 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 Alright, well I'm going to call it there. Thank you so much for watching this. If you've made it this far through the video, then I commend you. You've put up with me for who knows how long this video is at this point. I have been sitting on this video idea for quite some time. I'm really excited I was finally able to put it out there. Don't forget to like the video, comment, subscribe, all that other YouTube bull crap. I don't know. I would say it really helps me out, but honestly, maybe just if you want to, if you don't want to, go right ahead. And I have a lot more things planned. Not all of them might be Pokemon related. I'm actually not. I don't play Pokemon for a living. I'm not like going to regionals or tournaments or anything like that. I just play casually. And if you couldn't tell, I'm not really a programmer. I'm actually a geologist, but I do have some stuff planned for some geology in the American Southwest. Just stupid ideas if you want to stick around for that. I'll still do Pokemon stuff. That's still probably going to be my main focus right now. It's a little simpler compared to doing geology, especially since it's the summer and it's really freaking hot outside. Anyway, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.